And we're back.
Welcome to No Direction Beyond, your Starfinder's news, reviews, and interviews podcast. I'm Alexander Agunas, No Direction's everyman gamer, and I'm joined as always by the most intrepid Starfinder this side of the galaxy,
Hi,
James.
I'm James. I use straight code switch.
All right, here we are. It's January 2025. The Starfinder second edition playtest has come and gone, but we have to wait until like what, May in order to get our first Starfinder second edition product. That's going to be Galaxy Guide, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got some time. We got like 4 whole episodes between now and then where we got to figure out what we're going to do. And so for the first episode, it turns out that Paizo gave us a topic. They literally put it in a Christmas present and handed it right to James and I. And we're like, hey, guess what? You can look at this as being minorly annoying because we're going to do this like 2 days after your show. And then you won't be able to comment on it for a month. Or you can look at it as free show in January. And James and I are nothing if not glass half full, gentlemen.
We're very grateful.
We're very grateful. Basically, right after, like right before the holidays on January 20th, Paizo put out a basically like a end of the playtest errata sort of thing. The actual playtest didn't end until the 31st, so people were able to continue submitting their feedback and getting all that information in. I know I sent mine in on like December 30th. What about you,
As did
James?
I. As did I. I did it
Yeah.
December 30th. I did it right at the end.
Yeah, well, because I don't know about you, James, but I was like, I can't be bothered with this on New Year's Day, but I don't want to do this before Christmas either. I need the experience of playing Starfinder Second Edition to wash over me, and that has to happen after I get into my diabetic coma from all the sugar I ate at Christmas.
There's definitely some things I needed to think on and things that I think that I thought that I had to review. And there were some questions that I just went, I don't know. And that's
Yeah,
that's totally fine.
there were tons. I answered that GM one, and there was like a couple questions that felt like they were really tailored to like the pre-written games, and I'm like, I homebrewed, I've tested everything. I'm so sorry. I didn't do any of this. I didn't send them to the ghost quarter and the ghost lands and the ghost hallway and the ghost docks at the ghost station. I just didn't. Which is fine. I didn't give them the playtest data they wanted, but I gave them the playtest data they need. I
Hey,
like to
some
think.
some playtest data is better than no playtest data.
It's true. I know. Dustin and I have been talking, and Dustin is like, "Oh my god, I need this data. It's so much data. Give it to me." He literally started asking everybody in the No Direction channel, essentially, to not like the staff, like actual fans in the Discord. He's been asking for them to send the data in early so he can just like hold it like doubloons out of a treasure chest in Pirates of the Caribbean. It's great.
I was looking over some of them because they have on the FAQ section of the website. I was looking at the first FAQ, the
Yeah,
playtest rulebook errata, the first one, and I feel like based on what I had seen that was already implemented in the version of the book that I had downloaded, or I could
yeah,
have just been reading that wrong.
maybe. I don't know. I know that when I was running, Randall and John went. Oh, no, not John. Mostly Randall, a little bit of Rob too. They kind of like gave me some heads up on like, oh, make sure you do this, and I'm like, got it. I was like, if I forget something, just say it in the stream because I will forget, and I have a ADHD brain. It happens. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I in general, we're gonna go over what some of these changes are. I think what we might talk, I feel like we're going to talk about that final wave because from what I'm reading, the jump from wave three, which was like October 16th, to the end point at December 20th is pretty big. We might go over a couple of the things, but I'm planning on mostly talking about that last chunk and then, kind of taking the conversation from there.
Yeah, I mean that tracks along with what we're seeing there. I mean, I think the
Mm,
notes about these are on 3. These notes assume you've been following our errata. The latest
yeah.
version is summarized here. So I think 3 is this one.
Mm.
So 2 was the one, and that was in October.
Yeah, definitely. So, let's talk about it briefly. So, if you go over the errata, let's start with number three then. Wave three.
Mhm.
I think one of the first things that I've seen that's pretty cool is when you talk about the different player ancestries. I know James and I were both a big fan of this big change. The latest update basically. Originally, how it worked is that if you had more than one sets of hands, like you were a Skittermander or you were a Kasatha, you essentially like had one pair of hands that were your dominant hands, and the other ones like kind of had limited actions that they could take. I don't know about you, James. How did you feel about that rule implementation originally?
Bad.
Yeah, bad. It's the kind of thing where like I feel like when you look at pop culture and you see an alien that has a bunch of arms, you don't see them really favoring one sets of arms. You see them doing all the things at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you see them doing some things. Like oftentimes there is a primary and a secondary set, but they tend to
Yeah.
act in concert. It's also one of those things that I don't like it when somebody's doing something fairly innocuous when they're new to a game at a table, and you say, "Hey, you can't actually do that." Like when somebody switches hands on a weapon, like that. Nobody has fun getting nagged about that.
Yeah, I feel and honestly, like maybe this is just my opinion, but like I feel like the hands, like the hand and like how many hands I'm holding things, to me that kind of feels more like friction. Like
Hmm.
like and not really necessarily fun friction. It's the kind of thing where like yeah, I guess like it's balanced to a sense, but you can be so balanced that you balance the fun out of something, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it's a design space, but it's not a player space.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like it was trying to like take a problem on the horizon and head it off at the pass, but like that's not necessarily always fun. And I feel like what we got in the change is better. It feels more in service of fun.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
100% think so too.
yeah, the big change is essentially that like you still have a pair of dominant hands and like other hands. Dominant hands determine like what items you can like wield, like shields and weapons. I guess it sounds like they don't want you to be able to be like fighting with like all of your arms worth of hands and weapons at the same time. They want you to be able to like limit to like I have two guns and those are the ones I'm shooting with and I have all the other ones. And like it, but now with the new ones, you could still hold whatever you want in all of your other hands, which I think is good. Like if you're really worried about having too many weapons available and being too flexible in combat, I think that's a good compromise. I don't necessarily think that it's a necessary rule, but I think that if they feel it's needed, this is probably the best possible compromise. What do you think, James?
It's good. I think also to expand upon it, it does clarify that multi-arm characters can climb with their non-active hands, which
Yeah.
also implies that there's other non-strenuous, non-probably manipulate would be the tag for that. Actions that you can do with those hands. So you couldn't hack a computer, but you could scroll on, a social media site with your secondary hands while still wielding a weapon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean like in the newest one it says you can perform actions and use items with your other hands. It's just for weapons and like shields and like
Hmm.
things that specifically say you have to wield it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can only wield with your two dominant hands, but everything else is fair game. So I guess like you could use your primary hands to like shoot your gun and then use like one of your other hands to like text your bay or something.
Yeah, yeah, and once again, I think that tracks. That's a good change. A lot.
Mhm.
There's the third had a lot more changes that weren't just corrections.
Yeah.
Uh, the first one had a fair amount of corrections. Like one of the things that confused me, and I saw it on the second FAQ, was that the suppress condition in the back of the rulebook was different than the suppress condition in the soldier part of the rulebook. They're the same condition. One of them just had a typo.
Yeah.
So seeing that made me think there were two separate conditions earlier. Of like, why is there a soldier suppress and another suppress? It's not. It's the same. It's always a 10-foot speed penalty, not a 5 foot.
Yeah. That's a good clarification then, definitely. I guess maybe at one point they tried 10 and decided it was OP.
No, no. I mean, it is 10, not 5.
Oh, so it's supposed to be the better one.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Well, I
I
mean,
like I
you have three move actions. If 5 is essentially nothing.
mhm. I like better. Better is good. Speaking of things that are better and good, one of the things I really like is one of the newer FAQs talks about adding what's called a traversal trait. What the traversal trait does, it's a player facing trait that references for things that reference striding. So basically, traversal says that if something has the traversal trait, you're allowed to use like all those abilities are still going to reference your land speed, your walking speed, whatever. But if it has the traversal trait, you are allowed to use an alternate movement mode that you have, like being burrowing or flying or swimming in place of your land speed. Basically, how like the sneak ability works.
Okay. Yeah, that
Yeah.
one's solid.
Well, what's nice about it is like describing everything I just said typically takes about like 10, 15 words, about like a line or two. So
Hmm.
this means that they're going to be able to add that functionality to a whole bunch of rules going forward without dramatically increasing the amount of, let's call it redundant text, is a good way to put it. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Hmm.
And honestly, I think that traits are at their best when that is what they're doing, when they are keywords that summarize a complex idea into a single word and ability pane.
Yeah.
I'm I'm not a big fan of when they're used to like limit things. Like I've made it very clear that I think the incapacitate trait is miserable. Like, but
Well, then
this
you should be very happy. A lot of the FAQ gets rid of the incapacitate trait.
oh thank gosh, just take it and go goodbye.
I mean, it's still there, but a couple abilities have had it removed.
Yeah, I I mean like I guess. Well, did you have an example you want to talk about like that have said that it's gone now?
Yeah,
I think
one
it's a couple of the spells, right?
yeah, vibe check had that removed.
Mhm.
It was a couple other spells. Vibe check was one that I immediately noticed because I had to
Yeah,
look up what incapacitate did because I'm not familiar with it.
yeah. No, incapacitate is miserable. Is my answer.
I mean, it's like hold
Uh,
person, right? Sometimes you just hold person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man, we have a Starfinder developer Dustin Knight in chat, and there someone Lava being asked, "Do you have a free hand for feat abilities that require one?" And Dustin said, "I can't answer that in chat as a developer due to our FAQ policies, but I will add that to our list to review." So always a good time to check out. You never know. Developers are listening to the news wherever they can get it. So if you have your questions, let us know. Maybe on our Discord. NoDirection.podcast.com has a link. You can go and hang out with us and do all of the really cool things with all the really cool people. It's definitely a little quiet on the Starfinder front while we're waiting for Galaxy Guide and Starfinder Core. But if you're interested in Starfinder, there's no time like the present to head over, right, James?
No time like the present.
Indeed. So let's talk about another change that you thought was pretty cool.
How they simplified the vitality network a bit.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of math about how much you get back after resting and stuff like that, or when you refocus, and they're just like, yeah, you get it all
Mhm.
back because essentially it was like 70, ended up being like 75% of your thing, your pool in general, so around there, and it's just easier and way less math. It's way more beginner friendly, just to say, yeah, you get it all back because ultimately, that's the meat of the class, and you should be able to use it. So, good change, good change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the things that I thought was really cool is that they kind of preemptively got rid of concerns people might have with the Mystic and how it might work with like an Eoxian party member by making sure to state that vitality, transfer vitality always heals void creatures now. Because originally it was healing and a void creature either wouldn't benefit or it would hurt them because it's positive. So like knowing that this game has Borai as a core like alternate universal heritage, it's like, yeah, you're gonna need that. You're gonna need
Yeah,
that punk.
you want everybody to be in the core options to be able to play the game and not be sad like I was as a Dampier with a life shaman.
Now, there's also since I know that Starfinder, since not Starfinder, I know that since Pathfinder Second Edition isn't really your cup of tea, you might not have noticed this one really cool part about the Mystic changes. But one of the changes is that you regain your all of your vitality network when you refocus. Refocus. This is a new change that was added in the updates. One of the nice things about this, in my opinion, is that this sets a precedent that opens more design space for refocusing in the future. Currently, refocus is an action that you take to regain focus points specifically. So, like, those are points that you would spend to activate class specific spells, typically, like your connection spells for the Mystic.
Hmm.
Having a precedence where refocusing can give you back something that, like, does not involve focus points, I think is really cool. I'm actually really excited by that. It reminds me of Starfinder First Edition's 10-minute rest to regain stamina points.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think going forward, if we see more actions that let you regain things when you refocus, pretty cool. I like that. Do more of that, please.
Going down to list some obvious ones, the mental
Yeah.
interference feat has the mental trait. Cool.
Oh, oh no. That doesn't sound like that's a that's like that sounds like that's like not like a big major change.
No, no, no. I always like seeing just the little stuff like that. They also changed the will save on the operative to expert.
Yeah.
Increase that a bit. A big one for the sniper. They did a lot with the sniper operative. I'm guessing because the sniper operative had one not opportune. Um, Optimal playstyle, which was laying down and hiding and shooting,
Mhm.
and there really was almost no benefit unless you spec into doing other things. But like you were at your max effectiveness, slightly hiding behind something and just shooting the entire time.
Mm.
So they allowed you to ignore the traits of unwieldy and the volley gun traits of snipers. There's also one of the abilities got changed for them as well. It took away the thing that allowed you to instantly hide,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
another self attempt, and they replaced it with the ability to move uh, and reload your gun. Because
Yeah.
repositioning is at the heart of being a sniper. and
It's true.
it's more of like a lateral move in power. Because yeah, you could just still be hard to see and there, but like it does make for engaging play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Speaking of engaging gameplay, you might recall that when I went to PAX Unplugged with my buddy Tim, not last year but the year before, I tried the Envoy in person before the playtest came out, and one of the big changes that was, I would say, it was pretty controversial at the time, was that if you get them somebody, it gave them the off guard condition, which is essentially the same as like flanking.
Mhm.
So like it basically meant that if you were an envoy, you could just make someone always flanked. And on one hand, that's kind of cool, but on the other hand, that doesn't kind of hit the same like benefit as like, playing in first edition where you'd be like, I get them, and now they get that. I get everyone gets that cool bonus against them. One of the things that was changed is that after that they kind of like looked through everybody's reaction to how the envoy worked in Starfinder and decided that get them is a bonus now, which is a buff to melee characters in Starfinder because it means that if you get them somebody and you give someone a bonus to attack, you could still flank them in melee and get both the get them bonus and the flanking penalty to them.
Yeah, yeah. I think they might have done that initially to try to differentiate it from the bard because the bard gives a bonus, but
Yeah.
like it, this just works better because it allows flanking, which makes your melee characters more important. And there's a lot of changes that kind of buffed melee throughout these last
Yeah.
two errata specifically.
Dustin actually has a really funny insight in chat. He said that the Starfinder team wanted to test to see if it was easier for tables to have the GM track a penalty than have the players track a bonus. But it turns out that players like reminding each other that they have a bonus.
They do,
I,
they
I
do.
do. Oh gosh, you missed it. James and I are currently playing in a Pathfinder first edition game right now that our buddy Mike is GMing, and during our last game, we got into this big fight, and I'm a 8th level cleric now with the heroism domain. So I have an ability where I can just give everybody around me heroism. And it was very satisfying to like watch our friend Marquise roll his four, and because he is infamous for rolling fours. And I get to go, but did you calculate blessed prayer and heroism? And he goes, you doubled my dice roll. And I'm like, I did.
It's like it is a good feeling for people because it allows them to see more, and like once again, it also makes melee and flanking matter more. So I think that's a good change. Yes, it's less special, but I think the envoy has enough going for it that you won't confuse it with a bard any more than it already is confused with a bard.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're gonna make a party and the answer is to just not play a bard if someone's playing an envoy and vice versa, like
Yeah.
just don't overlap, don't cross the streams, you'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Or just have an envoy that doesn't like use that as their primary motive or use it to do alternate things. Like there's a lot of wiggle room here. I think that maybe you don't have to make everything so special. Maybe when something's familiar, that's fine.
Mhm. Also, we have someone in chat named Turgeman VT that says the amount of "I gave you guidance," which is a reference to 3.5 or not 3.5 in fifth edition, where like the guidance spell gives you an extra D 4 to your roll for something. And I have a buddy in a 5e game I'm playing who is a cleric, and it's literally every single check, every single thing he does, anybody does, I guidance them, and it's like, okay, Mr. Wise Cleric Man, I will take your guidance. Oh, look, I rolled a 4. That quadrupled my result. Good job. Thank you.
I mean, it's also like in our Starfinder game where you do that thing where if you're not in line of sight, but if you're in melee combat, you give a +1.
Oh my gosh, I love see this is why another thing James and I were talking about that was talking about the first edition game is like the types of roles that we like to play when we're doing tables. And James, remind me what you said, what kind of characters you really like to play?
I play a lot of generalists, people that just kind of do everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like playing support. Like that's something like in our last campaign, I played a Blood Rager and like it was fun, but I was like spending the whole time comparing how much damage I was doing to everybody else, and that wasn't fun to me. But when I'm playing support, I'm just like, I enable you. Your fate's in my hands. I got because like when we played Rain of Winter, and I loved my bard in that game. He was so much fun to play. And now I'm playing this cleric, and I'm also just giving everybody bonuses and solving problems by praying really hard to my God, and things are great. I love it. I support is wonderful. More people should play support.
Not too many people. It's just like when you have too
No,
many
no,
wizards.
no,
It's
no.
just like stop. Everybody stop debuffing. Somebody has to stab this thing.
More people should play support, but not at my table. At my play table, it should just be me. There's As our one friend Peter says, there's a limited amount of fun to be had in support, and it's mine.
It's the mercantilism of a game table. Okay.
Well, no. He says that specifically for his stacks deck in Magic the Gathering. It's a deck
Oh
that's
yeah.
based around it's a deck that's based around making it so that other players can't take actions, and so that he could just have all the fun. And so obviously we have to beat him into the ground as soon as like the stacks cards start coming out.
Ah, gotcha, gotcha.
And of course, that he asks, "Why are you guys bullying me?" It's like because you have the deck that will put us in the ground if we don't. Speaking about putting people in the ground, the operative is pretty good at that.
Yeah, yeah. They noted those changes about all the sniper changes there.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
there
yeah.
was there anything
Did
else
you
about it?
did you mention the hair trigger ability change?
No, because I did not reread that one in time.
Hair trigger is the way that if I recall correctly, it kind of is like an attack of opportunity in the sense that it's a reaction you can take to disrupt things that the operative gets. And it looks like they took that out of the core ability and made a 6 level feat to gain that back, which I think is a good thing because attack of opportunity as the fighter ability to disrupt actions is a 6 level like feat for almost everybody but the fighter. So like taking it from the operative and moving it a little bit down the line, that's more on par with like how other ranger can disrupt actions and the monk. Like in general, unless you're a fighter, you need to be level 6 to disrupt an enemy action like that. So I think that's
Oh.
good. Yeah, but they've also said that they're very vague about it. You will be happy to see we have buffed many specializations. I'm for that. That sounds good. Shower me with buffs, please.
Yeah, I mean, some of them were fine. I mean,
Yeah.
operative was just never my thing because I just didn't feel there was enough. They also did some stuff that allowed you to use your ranged melee or your ranged operative abilities with melee through the strike or whatever that is, the sure strike, not sure strike.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making up class features now, but it
Mm-hmm.
basically allows you to do the range thing with your hands and
Yeah, yeah.
agile weapons. So that's a good change. More melee is definitely my speed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm going to leave Solarian to you because you played a lot of Solarian during our playtest games. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I like is that we're exploring new ways to allow close quarters combat soldiers to use all those nifty area fire feats with their melee weapons. The changes we mentioned about weapons are going to have a big impact here, and we're excited to see where soldiers are heading. What that means is that there was a previous errata where they talked about going through a whole bunch of the different weapons and like boosting weapon upgrades and boosting armor upgrades and adding there's like a whole section about how they are basically buffing weapon statistics, bigger magazines, more damage, lower prices in bulk, higher expend values, giving more modular weapons so that you could switch weapons to do multiple things, having like non-lethal configurations, that kind of thing. So, I mean, anything that improves how weapons work is going to really help the soldier and the operative, I believe. So that's exciting to see. I
Yeah.
think I don't know about you, but every soldier I ever played in Starfinder First Edition was a melee soldier. So I'm like really excited to see that. Um, I think the one thing that I would really like is I would hope that you can be an effective melee soldier without needing to have the close quarters option, if that makes sense.
Mm, mm.
Like if I want to specialize in bombardier, I shouldn't have all of my cool soldier abilities turned off because somebody is engaging in me in melee. I should still be able to suppress them without needing to fire a grenade directly in front of me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
I do want close quarters to exist and to be the best melee. It's like how Blitz was the best melee in first edition. Blitz,
Blitz was fun. I mean, there's plenty of variety. I think though.
love Blitz.
There's a lot of buffs through whirling swipe, um,
Yeah.
through the feat there, which allows you to do an AOE basically.
Mhm.
And they increased it how it changes with weapons that have reach and the follow up strikes with that. And how primary target negotiates with that and suppression. So it makes them. I don't know if it makes you feel like you have more to do, but there definitely is more benefit you can get from being melee, as well as having dash skills lose the unwieldy trait.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Like, all of a sudden I can take this axe and I can swing it. It's good.
Yeah, so you make big AOE like 10-foot radius AOE attacks that hit people, then you can get your free follow up there, and then you can spend that other point to make them like fail that or re-roll the suppression check again. So there's a lot there, I think, when you want to go melee now, which is good.
Mhm. Um, I also one of the things that I forgot to mention in Mystic that I was really excited about. So you know how like when you're playing a healer, you have to do the age old game of on a scale of like how bad are you hurt? Asori asks Ocho. Oh well, on a scale of 0 to 56, I'm about a 43. So the mystic has a the mystic has a option now. It's like a line in the new Vitality network that says if someone is bonded with you, you actually know their hit point total. I I kind of like that. I think it's really funny to think that there is a character in game who has metagame knowledge of exactly how many hit points you are down. Like, like it feels very Sword Art Online to me.
You know, you're the only person I do that scale for. Everybody else, I just tell them I'm a little hurt, I'm kind of hurt, and I'm really hurt.
No, that's good because you know me. You know that I
Yeah.
want the exact number. Like I want to be able to perfectly judge the amount of resource I should spend on you. Unless it's channel energy and I just go channel, 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 channel. I take my hand and go channel, 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 channel.
Well,
I
look at
get
that.
12 of the I get
You're the
12 of
only
those a day. It's fine.
you're the only person that gets that. Everybody else gets the I'm gets the 3-tier scale.
Well, I feel like that was a joke that started at one of our society lodges, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty common joke.
That's true.
Maybe it came from a webcomic. Maybe it came from the one that Ryan helps with now. Probably.
Oh, yeah, you know, it might have been from Looking for Group.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
just like found a second life, reincarnated like just like now.
Right? I found a second life. It's so good. Speaking of things that are so good, Solarian, it's your time to shine. Or
Valerian.
dim.
Yeah, so remember very early on when I gave the critique that I don't like traits in sidebars. I want them
Yeah,
in the whole trait and condition.
yeah.
Looking over this, they removed the cycle trait from Black Hole and Supernova. And then I reread
Okay.
that trait, realized I never bothered using that trait in any of those playtest games.
That's funny.
It's a sidebar. I can't be bothered to remember that that switches my phasing there. Because I definitely didn't. I definitely stayed in one.
That's really funny.
So that's
That's
removed. So you can still keep the same benefits of black hole and supernova after you use them. And
mhm.
they removed the last sentence of armor expertise for Solarian because they don't get armor specialization effects. I don't know how important that is. I didn't really bother with that in the playtest. Um, are armor
I
specializations important in Pathfinder 2e?
I think if I recall right, every armor has a specialization that basically gives you like resistances. Like, oh, when you're wearing this armor, you get this extra defensive benefit. If I'm remembering it right, I don't remember what the armor specializations in Starfinder are, but I honestly I don't think it's a big deal. I
Yeah,
am not concerned about it. I would rather see my Solarian just whoom. Also, like the way that I look at it is that now that you have your stellar moat available for melee and ranged and armor all the time, your Solarian armor's reaction is kind of your armor specialization. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. And they also increased their class DCs, I think, by moving
Yeah.
them the improvements a little bit earlier. They added a
Good.
little bit more for forms for your weapon when you make it a melee weapon.
Also
I
good.
Yeah, the Solarian I think is getting to hit that spot where it's like you are there to explode on things. You don't have to be a glass cannon. It's probably not great for you to be a glass cannon, but you're not looking for the sustain that something like a soldier might have.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of this is one of the things that I've seen looking over a lot of these changes. There's a lot of emphasis on trying to really push all of the different classes to be really like bombastic in their niche, and bombastic isn't supposed to be like a bad thing. Like I think that if something makes your character special at the table, your character should be like explosive with that special thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it should be very obvious. And so one of the things that witch warpers are getting, since we haven't really talked about witch warpers, is they get an ability called quantum pulse at level 1 now, which allows them to warp reality as a free action as part of rolling initiative, which is like, oh, that's pretty cool. And they are trying to take some of the abilities that felt mandatory for the rich warper and that were feats and trying to like push them into the core class a bit better so that there are better feat choices. The one that was called out specifically was called quantum transposition, which is a good thing in my opinion. And there's also a change to how anchors work. Instead of having anchoring actions, anchors now provide automatic benefits when you sustain your quantum field. So, like, an anchoring action was like, oh, I have to do this to root myself in this reality. and that's being changed. So instead, like your anchor like gives you a bonus every time you keep your quantum field running, which I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a bonus to play around rather than just like a base mechanic, you know?
Yeah, like I think one of the coolest things about watching Rob play the Witch Warper, and Rob was like super like you could tell Rob came to this table, did his homework beforehand. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
he's not dumb like me that just made a dinosaur that bite good.
yeah, right. He came and like he's like, oh yeah, well when I sustain and do this, this happens, and now I get to do this and all these effects, and I'm basically just disco dancing as reality warps around me. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And it just seems like they're working to make sure that that is more streamlined. Like they're trying to make it so that using your field and keeping it rolling is something you basically always want to do, and I'm here for that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, anything that helps with the flow of that class because it is very easy to overread it and then start doubting what you're doing.
You know what's funny about the playtest Witch Warper, James? Tell
Mhm.
me, correct me if you think I'm wrong. I think that the playtest Witch Warper plays more like the first edition Starfinder Envoy than the second edition Starfinder Envoy does, in the sense that like the first edition Envoy was all about taking abilities that built you an action economy and using those action economies as effectively as possible. I feel like the Witch Warper Rob played was the same.
I feel like that's the subclass or the choices that he made, and I just think those choices more are easier to balance than trying to do other things or were
Yeah.
easier. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think that there are you could make a witch warper that would compete with an envoy's role in your party, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I one of the things that I don't agree with that I hear some people say, not necessarily about Starfinder, but like gamers in general, is like this idea that every class needs to be like 100% unique in the role they fill in the party, and I don't really agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm farther away than you are, where you're like open access everything. But I I feel like you should
Yeah.
have some overlap to allow people to customize what they want into, and still be productive at a table.
You are right. I am open access to basically everything. That is kind of my thing.
Yeah, yeah. That I think that's a perfectly normal, like perfectly okay stance to take because it's for a certain flavor of games, right?
True. I gotta admit, I really do like big bulky technomancers tanking with junk weapon. That made me so happy that people were doing that. And I was like, you know what? You right there, you're the goat. If you made a tank with a technomancer in first edition and he or she tanked using a junk weapon, you did exactly what I the person who wrote and conceptualized that spell wanted. Good job.
You made the dreams come true, man. Mike must have made you
My
so
dreams.
proud.
Listen, watching him get to go and be like, I don't even remember what his race was, but he just was a big, beefy wizard hacker man who just made a sword out of trash and hit people with it. I was so impressed with him until he got me killed in my first character. I learned in that game never give Mike a shield other spell.
Well, of course you're going to use it.
Yeah, no. And I couldn't turn it off once I was unconscious. That was the problem. The fact that I couldn't dismiss the smell bell when I was no longer awake. All right.
I have a fun errata, and I want to ask if you
Do
noticed
it.
this or if this is something we all just kind of collectively had amnesia on. That in the
Uh-huh.
base rulebook, it says that the Barathu has a base speed of 25.
It's that fast, really?
No, no, it was errata to be 5. I think people realized that that was a mistake, but you had to have
Oh,
played Starfinder 1e to know that.
yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't notice that. So
Yeah,
wait,
I
that
double
that that
checked the rulebook. It says 25 and then 30 or whatever the fly speed is. Yeah.
wait, so you're telling me if I take this print copy of the Starfinder rulebook right now and I open this up to the Baratha ancestry, I'm going to see that it says 25 feet for its movement speed?
Yeah.
Really? Oh my gosh, it says 25 feet for its movement speed. It splooshes like a jellyfish faster than it flies. It's only got a fly speed of 20 feet,
Oh, that's what
James.
it is. Yeah. I saw
No,
the errata and I was like, nobody that I had like talked with had mentioned this. And I think it was just one of those collective amnesia. We're like, we know this can't be right, so we're gonna put this out of our head.
I just like, oh, 25. This must mean five. That too is superfluous. You don't here villain only villains recall the 20. Yeah, no, because like why? Like it's a jellyfish. It goes bloop, bloop, bloop.
Yeah,
That's clearly a 5 foot flop. It's like a mermaid,
it's
but
like
in
a
the
crawl.
sky.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But
No,
and
it was obviously an error, and I think everybody just went, "Yeah, that's an error." We just we
Yeah,
realize this.
no, I think I read it and was like, my brain just automatically replaced the bad information and substituted the correct information,
Just refuse to believe it.
right? Just automatic like self-censoring in my own brain.
Yeah, and they also took away some stuff about shields, and I think the
Yeah.
wording of that was, "We're gonna do it later,"
Yes. We will deal with this later.
which is
I
fine. I
also
didn't want to touch a shield during playtest.
So one of the things I really like, there's a change, it's kind of like a slight correction to environmental protections for armor, where the sentence now reads: "A suit's environmental protections last a number of days equal to its item level, minimum 1 day." I really like that armor, that environmental protections are an armor upgrade, and like higher level ones protect better against better things. Like you kind of had that in first edition, but so like I'm very torn. On one hand, I appreciated getting free level 7 immunities to radiation when Robin locked me in a microwave that one time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But on the other hand, it's really frustrating to have monsters that have like breath weapons and then have all the players argue that their spacesuits are sealed, so they should be immune to it. And it's like, but why would the developer print this ability on this monster if the base armor just gave you blanket immunity to it? Why? Riddle me this, Batman. I don't care. I'm immune. I substitute your reality GM with my own. I'm like,
It's because the person that they got to hire it didn't realize that, and on the follow through after, nobody realized that, and then it got printed.
that's true. You did it.
That's just what happens.
You know, it's really funny. Speaking about inhaled effects that will kill you, if you play a Xeno Druid, the Xeno Druid feat, the feat for the Mystic that gives you a whole bunch of primal spells,
Mhm.
the fifth rank spell for that order that you get from it, it got replaced with the Toxic Cloud spell. So now you could just barf poison at people, and I think that's really cool. I think that the Xeno Druid should probably want to barf poison on all of the capitalists that are like consuming the natural world, man. Peace and love and death through poison.
A lot of being in chat. Should it not just allow you to pass low DC hazards? Yes. I think what Alex is talking about is when there's a targeted ability for like a creature that gets ignored.
Yeah. No, literally, the number of people were like, I'd be using a dragon, and the dragon had like a poison breath attack or a paralytic breath attack, and I'd breathe on them, and they go, "Oh, but I'm wearing armor. My environmental protections are always on, so I'm immune to it." And I'm just like, "This is DC 24. I'm immune to it. I hate you so much." To be fair, James has never done that to me. Whenever I tell James that he's now poisoned, he just says, "All right, boss," and he rolls and he's like, "Yep, that's a 4. St. Quattro."
Yep. Yeah. I almost died of drug withdrawal in our
Oh my
Starfinder
god.
game.
I felt so bad that the robot sentient god just like took your ability away to like have drugs from now on.
How dare he take my liberty to die of withdrawal?
I I
My
don't know if
freedom was taken.
I don't know I don't know if that person realized like that wasn't going to endear you to them. Like they should have taken the extra time to fix your nervous system in a way that you could still do what you wanted. That would have been much more appreciated. Now they're still the enemy.
You brought me back, but my soul is dead, and I have to live in this husk.
So Turgman VT says, "Wait, we're talking about Witch God Robot in a game that James and I play. There's like an artificial intelligence that possessed the mechanic player's drone, and nobody trusts this artificial intelligence because when a robot suddenly gets smart and nobody programmed it to do that, you go sus. You know, am I right?"
It don't got no soul. It don't got no soul.
Yeah. And so like it's been trying to be helpful to us, and we're like, "Thanks for the help. We don't trust you though." Every single time. And it's great because like I have like a brainworm in my head that actively who a brainworm whose daddy actively wants to like infest the entire planet with brainworms. But I've actively undermined the entire campaign for like a book and a half because if I didn't, the brainworm would erase my ability to do basically everything and I'd be a vegetable. And but still they trust me more than this robot because at
Yeah.
least I'm a person and this is
Yeah.
like a and they know where I came from. I came out of a knoll.
Yeah. And we know that your soul goes somewhere to be judged.
It's true. Pharasma will judge me, and it'll
Yeah,
probably be pretty harsh.
yeah.
I hurt a lot of people.
It was like 8 months of real time that you were trying to undermine us, and us just not realizing because we're stupid.
Oh, no, listen, you don't understand. It was so funny because I got exposed to this brain thing in like a dungeon where we went underground and like it was like an alien lab from 10,000 years ago and I was messing around with like the mind control stuff. So I got exposed to this entity. And
Yeah. Oh,
what I need you to do. So like I I robbed oh,
no, you're okay. You just had a little bit of cut out. You're
okay.
back.
Cool. I robbed our own like funds, and I spent the money on like building a lab to clone the little worms. And I started putting the worms in all of our leaders because I was like, I'll get the leaders on my side, and then I'll be able to control them. And we'll just make sure that none of the players ever find out. Because like my character was trying to justify what he did by saying, "Oh man, if I don't do this, he's gonna kill me, and then I won't be able to protect my friends from him because I'll be dead." And he's like, "Oh, I'm so self-sacrificing." No, you're just a coward. It was great. I told Tim, I was like, I'm gonna play a character who thinks he's going to do these terrible things to protect his friends, but he's actually just a coward. And I was like, that's the only way I can make this work. And so I started like putting all the brainworms in different people. And they all like the problem was is that the brainworms were like, oh well, I'm in these people's heads now. I gotta take orders from this Null, my player character. But at the same time, I still have to make sure that people think I'm the person I'm possessing. And it just so happened that every single person I put a brainworm into was an obstinate ass. Every single one. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to censor that out. I'm not sorry
Dang
though,
it. We
because
were
it's
so
true.
close.
No, no, completely obstinate. Every single one of them. And like so what happened was is they would be terrible. James would be like, I'm in charge of this here colony. I'm colony, the leader of the colony. And you're gonna talk like that to me? Well, draw my pistols. And then when James would inevitably kill them, they would turn into a horrible flesh monster. And so from their perspective, they were like, wow, anytime anybody doesn't agree with us and is a little bit obstinate, they turn out to be one of these monsters. This just must mean that everybody who's terrible to us is actually a carnivore flesh monster in disguise. And actually, it was me trying to build an army and take over this planet for the worm in my head, so I didn't get my own brain erased and just failing, utterly failing every single time. You, podcasters, you can't like listen. And James is dying on screen. We record this show live on Twitch, and if you watched us live on the last Wednesday of every month, you'd also get to see James die when I recount my story about how I just utterly got thwarted by a group of idiots, my fellow players, every single time.
I'm just trying to make it so that like I don't like laugh over your story because it was just that. We're smarter than that a little bit. But yeah, just people started becoming real mean to us, and they started putting us in situations where you can't back down because the other option is you get sent to Asmodean jail, which is basically killing you. And I ain't going
Yeah,
down like that. So that
yeah.
happened like 3 times, and then everybody else at the table went, "Man, there's this weird like virus or something like that that's going to people," and they get like really, really like mad, and then they turn into carnivores. So if we find anybody that gets really, really mad, we just have to put them down.
And it was my fault. They literally got like their answer to anybody remotely disagreeing with them was violence every single time.
Because it worked.
It did. And I was like, oh, and I want to point out that like none of our characters are good. We're basically hired by Hell Knights to colonize this frozen ice planet. It's and like we're trying to make Viva Frost Vegas. We're trying so hard. And obviously we're capitalistic cronies at this point. Like we just want the Hell Knights out because like fascism isn't cool, but us making money, that's cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool. Hopefully now that we've gotten rid of the Hell Knights, now we just have to get rid of the worms, and then we'll be good.
Easy. Easier said than done.
Easy clap clap. But that was a big detour because James and I love to talk about the weird adventures we have in outer space. Another thing they talked about was adventures in outer space in one of them. There was a lot of feedback about the Starfinder Society scenarios.
I haven't read any of them. I did start putting out feelers to run it because I want to run those games for people that have never played Starfinder First Edition. Because I
Mhm.
feel like some of my hangups about maybe Second Edition are because I'm being influenced by people that have played First Edition.
Perhaps.
So, but
That's
yeah,
a good idea. Who will you kidnap?
I'm not sure yet. I have a couple friends, so I'm still trying to
Should
figure out who.
You should grab them. It's just like yoink, yoink, yoink. But one of the things they talked about was there was a lot of feedback on the society adventures that were used to playtest. If you didn't know, in addition to having two like formally printed adventures, like I think they were like 64 pages, they were pretty good length. Were a series of Starfinder society scenarios at different levels that you could do playtest adventures in. And one, I guess, I haven't read any of them either, to be honest with you. I've only read the print copy ones, like Cosmic Birthday and the cool Vesk versus Aslanti one, whose name I can't remember. But one of the things they've said about the organized play scenarios is that they will be more judicious in the use of creature resistances and hardness in adventures. I take that as to mean they used it a little too liberally, and too much damage was shaven off. They've also seen some good feedback on shorter adventures for organized play and are excited to explore the 2 to 3 hour time slot more. I don't know if you know this, James, but since we stopped playing Society, they've kind of split into having like the longer adventures that are like 4 to 5 hours long. And then there are slightly shorter ones that are 2 to 3. And then you have bounties for conventions that are like one encounter one shots that are like an hour long. So it
Hmm.
sounds like they're trying to vary up adventure length. And if I had to take a guess, I would imagine that having too much resistance and hardness meant that players were doing less damage and encounters were taking too long. It would be my guess.
Yeah, and that opens you up to getting crit more and just exploding. I mean, it's the problem that you find in Pathfinder First Edition whenever they put an Iron
Mm.
Cobra against the first
Yeah,
level party, and they didn't have a
it's true.
barbarian that power attacked.
It's true. Very true. Uh, they didn't have that power. That's such a specific fix to that problem.
It's the ultimate key. It opens up the snake and gets you out of it, and doesn't make your whole party TPK while one person slinks away and comes back 4 days later after they've healed.
It opens up the snake. You're not wrong. That is an accurate sentence. It's really funny though.
So I'm guessing it has something to do with that.
Yeah. So there's also like a lot of, so one of the things I'm looking over is, especially in the second wave, there's like a lot of cool changes to improve like the quality of life of a lot of these different options. One of the ones I really like is to the professional trait. It's a trait that goes on weapons that basically says that that weapon can be used as a tool for a specific like kind of skill. And one of the things that they did that is pretty cool in my opinion is that for the purposes of proficiency, you could choose to treat this martial weapon as a simple weapon, or that this advanced weapon as a martial weapon up to your proficiency with the skill. What that means is that, let's say I am using a jackhammer, and that
Hmm.
jackhammer is like a professional tool for the mining skill, right? So if I have mining lore, I'm able to get benefits for it using mining lore. But if I have mining lore and it's an advanced melee weapon, I might not necessarily have the ability to use advanced melee weapons. But so according to this, with this option, you could choose to treat it as a simple weapon, or you could basically lower its proficiency by one ranking. So
Oh,
if
that's
it's
good.
yeah, if it's advanced, you can treat it as martial. If it's martial, you can treat it as simple, up to your proficiency with the listed skill, which
Mm.
is interesting. So I'm excited to see what that looks like, how that works out. I think that will be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think there was a weapon in Starfinder 1e that did it. The dancing blade
Yeah,
scarfs. Yeah.
yeah, they made a couple of different ones since then. You know, my molecular borer on A6 that I love using.
Hmm.
That one is actually a professional weapon for mining.
Oh.
That's why when we had, there was a building that desperately needed to collapse so we could get to a sniper. I just shot the building. It was great. It took her like 3 rounds to realize that I was trying to level the building that she was on, and then she started shooting me.
It was the right choice. You were very
It,
close.
it was so funny. The building collapsed, James. It was perfect. It's exact. I was unconscious, but it was exactly what I wanted. I got knocked unconscious, and then James heroically took up the jackhammer and finished jackhammering her down to the ground for us. It was great. It was
Mhm.
so good.
I'm a real one.
You are. If you need someone who will help enable your most ridiculous antics, you want James at your table. James
Yeah.
will do it.
I play this game for the stories. I don't play the game to win.
Like collapsing a building on a sniper. Really good. Really good.
The purely suboptimal play, but it's funny.
The nine I know that this is the game, the players who play second edition are very math oriented, but I'm going to tell you something. Funny is always more important than suboptimal, because I won't remember that my number was 3 higher and I won, but I will remember that I dropped that building on her.
Mhm,
And it was
mhm.
my plan and it worked. The best feeling in the world, just take a building
Yeah, yeah. I've made entire characters devoted to that.
I like your ballista slinging dragon slayer the best, honestly, as like a silly concept that is terrifying.
That was the second character building destroying character I had because I played a third party. Oh god, it was a pain. I still have all the tokens for it, but it threw
Mhm.
C4 on and like debt charges on walls, so
Yeah,
it made those into shrapnel to hit people
yeah.
behind walls. I was terror.
Yeah. Lava being in chat asked for clarification on the professional weapon. Uh, ask so applicable lore will provide access to higher complexity weapons. I don't know if that is the case, but at the very least for these specific weapons, it will. Yes.
Yeah, I mean it
Yeah.
tracks. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Pretty
think
cool.
empowering lore and profession skills are always fun in these games.
Yeah, and I think that having fun things like that for lore skills where because I am this, I am better at this than I should be. I think that's fun. I
Hmm.
think that that is it's like I think that one of the things that we can sometimes get lost in the sauce as game designers. I was actually posting about this on Blue Sky today about how there's a trend there has been a trend in game design to try to optimize things so heavily that they are no longer fun in
Hmm.
terms of like how games are designed. And I feel like we're sort of seeing a pushback on that in like a lot of different games that have come out where it's definitely focused on maybe not perfect balance, but things being unbalanced doesn't mean they're broken. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. You just have fun within that space that it makes,
Yes, exactly.
or you're just
I
impressed by how much profession lacrosse coach and sailor has come up in our Pathfinder game.
uh profession lacrosse coach, profession sailor, profession barrister. My my one regret is that I've been trying to make lore Shizuru checks and I'm on the other side of the world from my god. It just hasn't been active. I'm like, oh, this is sad, but okay, I
You
get
know,
it.
the worst part about that lore is you could have no ranks in it, and people would believe you.
I know. I'm so good at Shizuru lore. I'm so good at it, but I might as well not be good at Shizuru lore because people just don't know. Also, they
Yeah,
don't know how much better I am at Shizuru lore than knowledge religion. Like I've got like a plus 14, 15 to Shizuru lore, and I've
yeah,
got like a plus 7 or 8 to knowledge
yeah.
religion.
Dude, I don't know. You're just a fox dude that runs around with a bunch of holy stuff on it. I would believe anything you said about it, pretty much.
I know it's that part's really funny. Also, gosh, you weren't there for this game, but we were playing this game, and every time we go to a new town or meet a new person, if I'm not in my human form, the first thing that our GM says is, "Do you know you're a fox man?" Just like that, and I'm like, "Oh wow, yeah, I absolutely do." And so we met this guy for the first time, and he goes, "Oh, it's a kitsune," and I look at him, I'm like you know what I am? And he's like, yeah, everybody around here knows what you are. And I'm like, that's either really ominous or really refreshing. I'm not sure which yet. It was very fun. All right. So we've been talking about fun stories and going over the errata for about an hour, give or take. Final thoughts on the errata, James. What do you think?
I enjoy the push for melee becoming better,
Yeah.
and simplifying mechanics that do too much math.
I One of the things that I think is really refreshing about this errata is that there are not a lot of places where the errata makes things worse. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
I can't think of anything where it made something I don't like. I mean, like
Yeah.
the fact that some things are maintained, like the hand and the feats that allow you to draw stuff faster and hand stuff. But
Yeah.
regardless, that doesn't make it worse.
I think that yeah, I think like with hands, my preference would just be that there's no difference. A hand is a hand. I think that is the easier rule. I think it's more intuitive. But like if restrictions are needed for some nebulous balance reason that I don't understand, like I think that this version is the best version they've shown us, and
Hmm.
it's fine. And in general, everything that has changed, even if the end step isn't exactly what I would wanted, it's unquestionably better than it
Yeah,
was. Like
yeah.
it definitely feels like everything has been like cleaned up, tuned, a little bit more emphasis on the player facing experience. I definitely like it a lot better. And I think that overall it looks like it's in a pretty good spot. I'm excited to see where it looks with these last couple months of polish before the game goes to the printer. Knowing what I know about publishing and like having worked with Paizo before, if that book is coming out at Gen Con, it's probably going to the printers about 3 or 4 months before. So I'd expect like sometime in April because they're not gonna try to get this book to the printers during PaizoCon. Like PaizoCon is definitely chiller for Paizo than it was like before COVID. But I think that like because like back before COVID, it used to be an in-person event where they would literally disrupt everybody's schedules to get the designers to get the designers and developers to like make events and stuff. Like if you've ever
Mhm.
been to PaizoCon, like all of them came with their own like their own special little mini adventures and like events that they would run, and they'd have to put presentations together. Like it was a lot. And so like there's still some of that. Like a lot of them do still present, but a lot of it, I feel like a lot of the Oedipus seems like it's more on marketing now, and the designers are just kind of delivering the information, which is
Impetus.
good. Impetus, you're right. Impotence. I should know that. There's like 7 magic cards with impetus in their name.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Not that other word.
yeah. Did I say something wrong? Did I say something
You said
bad?
Oedipus.
Oh, that's definitely not the right word. Don't edit that out, by the way.
No,
Like
that's
keep
staying
it in.
in. That's fine, that's
Let
not a swear.
let everyone see how bad I am at pronunciation. People should know. Uh, and has Tim ever told you my Marshall maneuvers story?
Let me get see what marital maneuvers.
Yeah, I said marital maneuvers. I was very flustered because I was saying something else and I wasn't saying Marshall. And it's one of those words that I've read before and knew what it meant and had never said it. I was like 18 or 19 at the time. And so I got really flustered because Tim was laughing at me and I shouted, you make an attack with your marital maneuvers, and I never lived that down.
That's a good
Very
one.
good. It's a very good one. I was very flustered at the time, but now like 15 years removed from that incident, it's really funny. So it's fine. Um yeah, so I think that we're kind of in this situation where like it's not quite as stressful for them, but I still don't expect that Paizo is going to want to like try to ship this book in May right up on the front heels of PaizoCon. I imagine that it's probably going to the printers like mid to end of April, which means that, there's still a good like 3 or 4 months of polish that could get put in the book, which hopefully means it's going to be a pretty awesome product. And we'll get to see what they announce beyond that.
Ah, beyond, I get it.
Yes. And if you want to go beyond, obviously you need us, No Direction. We record every, what is it, the last Wednesday of every month? Is
Last
that right?
Wednesday, yep. Mhm.
Yeah. Just, mark it on your calendars. We'll be here. We often are like not really like pushing too hard until we get right around that edge, but we love when people come and hang out with us live. It's super cool. Right now
Yeah.
we have like 8 to 10 people, which is pretty cool, hanging out, having fun.
Yeah,
Obviously,
people
most of
people
you,
cycle through. That's fine.
yeah, obviously most of you listen on the podcast, and you're totally valid. We love you too. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us while you're doing whatever it is you need to do.
Yeah, thank you all your patrons for all your support. It helps make sure that we can, host things because hosting gets expensive.
Yeah, it does. It does. Hosting does get expensive, and it's fun to have nice things. I actually, speaking of nice things, I just got this nice new microphone and this nice new like arm jet. My parents got it for me for Christmas, but still, we like having nice things here.
Mhm.
But until next time, we hope that you'll go beyond with No Direction.